Now, how many of you have heard of the Indus Entrepreneur TIE? Okay, so if you have ever been to a TIE event and registered for it, you probably used a service, whether you realized it or not, called 123 Sign Up. Well, the brain behind 123 Sign Up is with us, although he's no longer with 123 Sign Up. Raj Shah is with one of the most innovative companies in the world, Google. And prior to Google, he's done a couple of other startups. Katera was one of them, funded by Kleiner Perkins. In the mid-1990s, Raj came to India to set up the Offshore Center for Informix. So he's a veteran of a lot of things that people have only recently begun to learn. Raj has been very active in the Pan IIT alumni movement, going back to the first Pan IIT alumni event held in San Jose in 2003, and carrying on since then. He was also the chair of one of the largest TIE conferences held in the Silicon Valley a couple of years ago. And I'm sure there's many things about innovation at Google that he could share with us, but I think he's not going to do that. He's going to tell us about something else.
So as Gunjan said, I'm not going to talk about a specific company. You know a lot about Google, but I'll weave in some things from each of the company. But I wanted to actually talk about, giving you a structure for thinking about innovation and entrepreneurship. I'll be repeating some of the messages earlier, but hopefully it'll help you think about, as you think about entrepreneurship and innovation in your journey. Perhaps this will be useful. So really, you can classify innovation into 4 types: minor innovations, substantive innovations, major innovations, and radical. I'll give you a quick examples of each one of them. A minor innovation is something that does one thing slightly better than another, but doesn't necessarily change your satisfaction. Closer. Okay, how is that? So a minor. Do I need to repeat all that? So I'm going to quickly go over some categories of innovation that will perhaps give you some structure to think about innovation and entrepreneurship. So there are 4 categories of innovation, 4 types of innovation: minor, substantive, major, and radical. A minor innovation is where also called a cosmetic innovation, where you do something slightly better than somebody else does. It doesn't fundamentally change how a customer feels satisfied or not satisfied. So as an example, if 2 airlines giving you the same price, but one gives you better food, so you might take that airline if you have all the choices, but it's not going to fundamentally change your decision for forever. A substantive innovation is where it brings a new standard in the marketplace. And it cannot be ignored for a long time. Once you have it, your competitors will be forced to provide the same level of service down the line. So, as an example, availability of roaming and cell phones. Initially, one company offers it for free or offers it, then others may go without it for a while, but eventually they have to catch up. The next category, major innovation, fundamentally changes how people think about a service. And it changes, it has significant impacts down the line. It changes business models, it changes, and that's something that neither consumers nor competitors can ignore. Example, in manufacturing world, just in time, delivery of suppliers. When that came about, it really changed how people had to lay out the capital, how they had to plan their inventory. It changed that industry, or in fact all manufacturing industries, quite dramatically. Often it's not seen very easily by everybody, but as soon as it's in the marketplace, people kind of say, "Oh, how come it wasn't there earlier?" It's very obvious to them afterwards. And then many innovations, there are series of minor innovations that end up being a major. So I think Bharat Matrimony, I would say an example, is actually a major innovation. But you're very humble in saying these are all minor innovations, but they're not. They're actually a series of minor innovations that has really created a very different way of, it has changed how society looks at matrimony on the internet, quite significantly. So that's an example of a major innovation. A radical innovation is something that, when it happens, you won't even know that it opens up lots of new possibilities, and it takes some time before its impact is felt. When the automobile was invented, a lot of people actually refer to that as horseless carriages, because that's the only way they could relate to it. All they could see was it's instead of a horse carrying passengers, a machine is carrying it. But it took some time before they realized that now you can get to places in 2 hours rather than 8 hours. And that allowed for a whole new ecosystem to develop, particularly the Western society, development of suburbia. That all happened because of the automobile. When the computers came out, a lot of people thought of that as glorified typewriters. In fact, executives refused to touch computers because they thought that's what their secretaries did, because they typed memos there. It took a long time before they realized how computers can be used to do different things. Internet is another example of that. Initially it was simply, hey, I can go get my email, or I can look up things, but really it's only now, or it took some time before everybody saw that it really changes how you market. And the cost of marketing has grown dramatically because of that. And that's just one of the things, but there are lots of things happening as a result of that. I think you talked about iPhone. I mean, that's still very, often these radical innovations are very confusing to start with. You don't know exactly how it's going to affect your life. iPhone is an example of that. You don't know whether it's a computer, it's a cell phone, it's your PDA, it's, it may turn out to be something else. But it is dramatically changing how things are happening. Now, all of this require different kinds of structures. In most cases, radical innovations require a lot of patience, a long time before it becomes financially viable. So many of these things happen in research environments, funded in the university, funded by the government, or in some places like Google, where we are fortunate enough to fund a lot of these things, because those engineers that are funding, experimenting with things don't have to worry about immediate profitability. How many of you use Orchid? So, again, that's an engineer named Orchid who kind of played around, and I think he's going to speak on Sunday. He played around with some, service to kind of connect people, to actually connect his own friends, and then it sort of grew from there. But it was an environment in Google which allowed for that kind of innovation that, made that happen. Now let's talk about, entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship and innovation, they don't have to go together. Entrepreneurship is simply it says that you are able to bring a new business to market that is self-sustaining. Self-sustaining could be over a long period of time, but the horizon of time can be different. And it can be an innovation of a product. You bring something new to the marketplace, or you bring a new service, or is same product, same service, or a different business model. In some cases, it's the same product, same service, same business model as somebody else, except that you are able to execute it much better than anybody else has done before. Okay, so this is just just a structure for you to think about innovation and entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship, the fundamental point is, if you bring something to market, why would someone buy it from you? All else being equal, people are going to buy from a brand that's better known to them, a bigger brand. So you have to be different in some form. Or you have to be new. You offer something that nobody else has offered. Example, matrimony just wasn't there in the marketplace. Okay, or they're in small pieces, but you guys really made it happen. So the last point I'll make, and then I'll leave the rest to questions, is how do we make more of this happen within the IIT structure? And I think my observation is that we need to have more exposure to these kind of things that are happening. For students particularly, right in the campus, I think Bombay has this Center for Innovation sign, and I think I've seen several companies develop there where students can do entrepreneurship, internship, and work on projects while they are still in college. And I think we have to do more of those things to expose all these possibilities to both students and alumni. Thank you.